Welcome to Lex Cunningham's Pure Garbage Podcast. Lex's guest today is professional wrestling referee Jim Connolly, a.k.a. Old School.
I have with me, you're not going to believe this, Jimmy O, as in Old School. Who's Jimmy Old School? Who's Old School? Well, you're about to find out. Not just the legend in Canada, but growing throughout the world. That means the United States, Great Britain, and of course, Bulgaria. Old School, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Nice to be talking to you.
Thank you, sir. So here you are. You're this referee. You're coming out of the woods here in Canada. How did you get into wrestling? When did it start for you?
Well, I started watching wrestling back in the 60s and 70s. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm 64 years old. I've been refereeing for 20 years. I started at the late age of 45. I'm a retired elementary school teacher. And I started that at 31, so I'm an inspiration to old people everywhere. I love wrestling, and I got into it 19 years ago, and I've been doing it mostly in Ontario, and that's about it. So ask another question. Keep it going.
Your skill sets are based on tearing guys apart.
Yeah, it's a great sport. It's a lot of fun. A lot of people, a lot of great people in there. I've worked with a lot of WWE superstars and some of the newer guys and some of the older guys. And mostly referees are supposed to be in the background, but because of my age, I get a little bit of because the wrestlers push me around a little bit, so I get a little bit more attention than some people. It's an entertainment, it's a show, so I make sure that I try to entertain. I love to, for instance, I just was in North Bay a couple of weeks ago, and that's the first time I've been there, so made sure I did a little flossing for the young guys. Old guy doing that, they think that's pretty funny. So I'm one of the few referees who actually sells merchandise as well, so had really good luck with shirts I made last year with Old School, and now I'm not selling too much, just the 8x10s and things, but all my friends are 26 years old in the business and just starting out, and keeps me young for sure.
Young indeed, man. You're awesome. Maybe you know how it's going to end. Maybe you don't. Right?
I'll never tell.
You'll never tell. But Abdullah the Butcher.
He's a scary man, and I did one of the famous Hannibal Abdullah the Butcher matches in Oshawa many years ago, and it was famous because Hannibal actually was able to get an audition with the WWE, and he ended up having hepatitis, which he blamed Abdullah for because of all the bleeding and stuff. So it was actually became a kind of a famous match. Yeah, I mean, Abdullah certainly bled a lot, that's for sure. He used to entertain people by putting dimes in all the scars in his head. Pretty funny guy. When he speaks, he actually has a very, very high voice, which is kind of, you don't expect that from. And he's from the Sudan by way of Windsor.
So he's a Windsor guy with Sudan.
Yeah, basically.
So he's from Windsor. He's from Windsor. Who you fooling?
Yeah.
Okay.
And his first name is Larry. That's all I'm going to say. And
nice.
That's true.
Okay, the Young Bucks.
The Young Bucks, that was an interesting one. We do an annual show here in Bradford, pardon me. I work both. Bradford. So I'd done that for 15 years, and I wasn't supposed to do the show. I walked in. I guess the other referee hadn't done very well, and they said, "We've got this tag team for you," and it was the Young Bucks. And in Bradford, they're pretty much the most famous tag team right now, of All Elite and Cody Rhodes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you know what? No one knew who they were. So it was very interesting. They couldn't have been any nicer, and just super guys, super talent. And I'm so proud of them and happy where they're being. Nothing more than what you see on TV. They're just nice guys.
You're a wrestling referee. The process of you walking into an office somewhere, you found somebody somewhere, and you said you wanted to be a ref, or were you like in a gym and it just happened? Like, that's not normal.
That's not normal.
Here's what happens, and you see, I'm trying to inspire older people. I also, to keep in shape, I do Zumba 4 times a week. I do yoga. I do all that kind of stuff. I like to do fun things and stay young. The reality is, I knew somebody. Sorry, guys. I wish I gave you an inspirational story. I used to stand outside Maple Leaf Gardens in the late 60s and early 70s, and there was a kid in front of me, and we got talking, and because in those days there was no internet. We thought wrestling was totally on the up and up right till a very late age, and we got chatting. And if you were a wrestling fan, you'd be going down by yourself, right? And you'd meet other people that were down there by themselves. There wasn't this big cult of wrestling fans. So one of them was a young kid with a big afro named Ronnie Hutchison. Oh, wow. And I got in touch with him probably when I was 30 or 40 years old. And he ended up being the trainer of Edge and Christian and Trish Stratus and a few other famous wrestlers. And one year I just said, I guess I was in my 40s, and I said, I want to do something. I want to be part of wrestling. I've been watching it all my life. So he suggested, why don't you come in and replace this young girl who had just been the commissioner of his little wrestling promotion, and her name was Trish Stratus. So I was supposed to come in to replace her.
Wow.
Didn't work out. I know. And it didn't work out. So what happened is he did his thing at the CNE, the Canadian National Exhibition, and where he did it every day of the exhibition, 19 days straight. Being a teacher, I had the summers off. So he said, hey, you got running shoes in the car? Because I came down for the first show. And I said, yeah, I do. He says, well, put them on. You're doing the first match. And my first match was August 18th, 2000. Vijay Singh against Sin Bodhi, who became Kazarni in WWE.
Old school.
Hit the mat hard. Hit the mat hard and get out of the way.
Old school. That's normal to you, but to everybody else, that's not normal. You get thrown in the ring with those two beasts, okay? And you're at the
and they were both big, yeah.
Yeah, they're both big men. And sure,
yep.
you're agile, you're light on your feet.
It's all the Zumba.
It's the Zumba, but back then, man, like, okay, I'm pretty sure you're taking care of yourself your whole life, but there you are. You are.
They pushed me around, they intimidated me, they did the whole thing, but it ended up being a draw, so it worked out. I got in there alive, and couldn't wait to go back again the next day.
So do you know the moves? Are they whispering as they whip the guy into the ropes to watch out, move left?
I know very little about the match. It's a competitive thing. They do get injured. They're the best athletes, performers in the world. Really don't know a lot about the match. So if you ever see me or you see me in Ontario, you'll notice that I get in the way a lot of times because I'm old and slow some ways. But you learn to move, and you learn to that they do all their moves to the left, so you make sure that you get out of their way, and you sort of, just like if you were a fan, you sort of predict, oh, he's going to do a hip toss now, so and I try to aim for their shoulders. I try to, figure out where their shoulders going to end up, because that's really all I have to do is count the pin when their shoulders are down. So not too many secrets there, other than it's just experience. You get better as you get experienced.
And you've done over 2,000 matches, eh?
Pretty close. I'm at 1,900 now. I've got about 100 more to get 2,000. We'll see what happens. I like to work, so I do pretty well every weekend. This weekend I have one show. Next weekend I have 3 shows. So
you have kids, right?
I have kids and a grandchild.
So here's Grandpa. Well, here's Dad. Okay, so Dad's doing this thing, and you're at the age where you should be retiring and out in the backyard staring at the blades of grass. But instead, you're a pretty active guy. Do your kids come to matches and cringe, or are they like really excited for you, or they want to get in the game
my
too?
Kids are in their 30s now, but when they were young, they were kind of excited about it. And they've both seen me ref, but I mean, it's like anything. They get used to it, and they sort of roll their eyes now. And, they're in their 30s and successful people, so they come once in a while, and I'm always excited when they come.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not really an entertainer. I try to stay in the background and let the wrestlers do their thing. So but like you said, sitting watching the that's my Monday to Friday. My weekends are my fun time.
Now, do you ever get involved where we're going to want to throw you on your back?
Tell me that. They usually just do it. And I've been what they call bumped quite a bit, and everything from, missed stinger splashes to clotheslines to lots of different things like that. In fact, and this is something I don't know if I told you, at 63, 1 year ago this month, I started training as a wrestler. So I've been doing that for a little while. I actually wrestled last week, and I wrestle as the Zumba Kid.
Are you in the TNA or the CZW? Where are you? NWA? Where?
No. I work all over Ontario and just in small little promotions. I was lucky enough to do a CZW World Championship match with Black Jesus, and I also did a NWA just recently, an NWA title match with Jazz from who's the world champion at that time. I also did a TNA World Championship match years and years ago with Jeff Jarrett Jeff Jarrett, Sabu, Samoa Joe, and Rhino in a 4-way tables match.
Wow.
Yeah, I repped a few pretty exciting people.
Old School, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for asking me. I had a great time. And don't forget, 1, 2, 3, Old School, out of here.
Thank you for listening to Lex Cunningham's Pure Garbage podcast, and thanks to Jim Connolly. You can find him at Eddie Old School on Instagram, and his fan page on Facebook is Old School Eddington James. To find us, you can subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, Podcast Addict, Downcast, and Stitcher.